but maybe they need to inspect their process. And your hunch is probably correct.
Well, so I'll tell you, in this particular case, I'm pretty sure that there is waste, because one of the things that happens is they have stuff which they deliver at the end of sprints, but then it's not actually deliverable because the code hasn't been reviewed. And the code has to be reviewed by people outside the team that's writing it, by these other groups, because there are handoffs. So that to me is another sign of waste, is that they're not doing, and it may be hand in hand with this, they're not doing feature-driven development. So it's really, I think, a holdover from when they were not agile, and so they have, like, one team does the database layer, and one team does this other layer, and one team does the user interface, and so there are these handoffs to the teams. They refuse to, like, overlap sprints, which would be one way to do the handoffs, right? Is if this set of team hands off to that team, right? They could have sprints that overlap instead of end at the same time, but they refuse to do that. So there's in this case, I think there's a lot of waste and inefficiency, and they aren't really getting.
Yeah, you said a lot of really makes me want to jump stuff
yes,
right there.
Well, so I mean, but my question is, if we wanted to say, like, here are some metrics to somebody to say, this is how you would tell if you're doing lean software development. This is what it might look like. What are the things that we would talk about to those people?
One more sentence would be look at the whole process. The biggest thing to me is that you have these individual handoffs, and you're not looking at the complete value stream. So.
Right. I mean, I'll say, I mean, maybe to spark discussion a little bit, one of the ways that I've tried to really look at lean and agile teams that I've led is putting Kanban into whatever other processes we're using, but is to map our internal process using Kanban and see what that tells us about, well, where is everything backing up? What is that? Does that tell us something about our process? Does that tell us something about the resources we need? But that's a small part of what I think overall lean is a big
Are
thing.
you guys doing software for sale or for internal use?
Mostly it's for internal use, or it's not that the software is sold, but the software, there's a cloud, there's a web presence. So somebody
you don't put a price on it, really.
Correct.
One of my reactions to what you guys started talking about waste, and one of the signs I think of someone that's not fully lean is that they just talk about waste and that's it. There's like a huge amount of other stuff that there is to lean.
Right, absolutely.
And part of what I think lean covers well that Agile doesn't always cover, particularly in non-sales software, is value. And one of the things that the lean people like at 3M do is they get accountants involved, and they're really focused on value, not just waste, and figuring out what that is.
Dave, does that go into value stream mapping?
Yeah.
Sort of this holistic exercise.
Right, and that's sort of a confusing area where if you look at value stream mapping, it's described in different ways all over the map, and so it's hard to get a focus on that. But that's, if you're doing lean well, you do that kind of stuff. And what you said, I agree with just the whole process. So you're not sub-optimizing stuff, you're looking at the whole thing. But one of the misconceptions that people have about lean and agile is that a lot of people think agile is this and lean is this, but it's really the opposite. And lean has this history that goes back way farther than agile. And there's a lot more sophistication in a lot of areas that you don't see in agile as you see in lean.
I love the fact that you're leveraging a Kanban board to visualize the workflow, because then all of a sudden you're not immediately saying, oh, we're going to use this framework. And because I've seen some teams that they were doing Scrum, and they lost the sight. Well, the first question, it was somebody was doing a group of data scientists. And they're like, well, we're doing Scrum. I'm like, okay, why are you doing Scrum? Well, because we were told we need to be agile, so we're going to use Scrum. I'm like, okay, so how's that working out for you? Well, there's a lot of well, we're doing the sprint planning and the work. We're testing methods, we're testing models, and it really doesn't fit in the 2 weeks. Like, okay, so why are you doing it? You know, and they're like, well, we just need to know when we're going to be there. Well, okay, so why are you doing it? So what I was trying to drive home to them or make them consider, what's the waste? You know, you're understand that it's a framework. It's one of the available frameworks that's out there, but using lean methods, trying to eliminate that waste. That's why I want them to start thinking outside the box, and that you can be, air quotes, be agile by leveraging some lean practices, you know, versus just running for the most popular delivery framework, you know, the or quote unquote most popular. But yeah, so what I love about lean is, it doesn't matter what your framework is. You could be doing waterfall really, really well. You know, just do it really, really well. Identify where your gaps are, close those gaps, eliminate that waste. But I also heard you say they start to forget about the value prop or the value of their, and instead of just trying to save the money, well, how can we make more money as well?
One of the things that I had success with one group doing things